What are we doing, Shahir? Why are we here midweek?
We're going to give spoilers away. The spoiler ban has been lifted, and that's what we're here to do.
Thank you so much,
The Russos. But in fact, we already gave away spoilers, so there's another reason we're here.
Oh, we're talking about Endgame, of course.
We are the conversation that never ends. You know what I find really interesting is that on the podcast you will talk about how like episodes are running long, but our Endgame episode was like 2.5 hours with no mention of how long it is. This is not a dig at you. I'm just saying
I take it as a compliment.
We seem to be. This movie is swallowing us whole. It is the movie that is the quickest to reach $2 point something billion at this point.
It beat out Titanic at this point.
And right now, Zoe Saldana is the only actress to be in the top 2 films of all time, which is Avatar and this, and it'll surely surpass Avatar at some point.
Yep.
I have not given this movie a second thought. I liked it. I did like it.
I know you did.
But I have not given this movie a second thought.
Well, I gave it a second watch.
You did give it a second watch.
First of all, just everyone listening, this episode is not going to be mostly about what Shahir. It's not going to be us leading it. We got so many emails that we wanted to give a little half-week bonus episode for everybody.
Avengers Endgame.
We didn't want to put it in like the next episode because we thought it would take away from the time that we'd have to do that.
Yeah, and I hate the idea that we'd be like doing a film like Burning. You mentioned this because we were originally going to do it in Burning. I hate the idea that we would be like doing Burning and then coming back to Avengers Endgame because I felt that was unfair to Burning.
Yeah.
And I didn't say that at the time, but you did, and I think that was a good call.
But real quick, before we even get into the emails, I did see it a second time. And
how did it hold up?
It works way better.
Really?
And again, I loved it the first time, no question. But first and foremost, I saw it in 2D RPX,
which is way better, right?
Which is way better. But I will say this, and I hope this isn't throwing some shade at our local Astoria, Cineplex. But the weird thing about it was, I noticed that the image itself seemed blown up, like they almost like didn't have a resolution set right. The scene, this is not a spoiler, it's in the trailer, where Iron Man is recording a message on his helmet, and since he's nanoparticles, like there's a lot of thin lines sort of etched into the broken helmet. Anytime there was a thin line with a lot of contrast, I saw pixels.
Ooh.
And I was like, what the shit?
You don't want to pay $20 for an RPX screening only to see a pixel.
I know, it was very weird.
That's
other than that, from a narrative perspective, I'll go to
low-grade shit right there.
I know. I'll go back and I will deal with people talking about timelines. I'll deal with people, everything. Everything worked. And it's funny. A lot of the gripes I had about specific things are a little bit washed away. We'll probably get into some of them in these emails.
There's a specific question about timeline that we should address later.
Yeah. So it was just interesting. And I will say that one of my qualms with the film that was washed away is only due to the fact that I know outside information about the filmmaking process and films coming down the line. So like there's that weird balance of like, oh, well then does it work? Anyway, very excited. Let's dive into some of these emails.
Yes, and you can always email us in at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com or hit us up on Twitter at onlymoviepod. We ask if you are hitting us up on Twitter or on Facebook. Some people haven't seen the movie, so please don't put any spoilers in there. If you've got a really spoilerific comment that you want to make, please email us in. That's, I think, the better way, the more polite way to do things.
Yes, and mark the email. Everyone's actually been real good.
Well, we've seen the movie now.
No, but even beforehand, like when we had some emails coming in, everyone's like, hey guys, spoilers, just so you know. Like, I find the spoiler conversation refreshing and respectful.
So first email came in from Catherine, and hi Matt and Shahir. Hi Shahir. I just finished listening to your Avengers Endgame episode. Loved the discussion.
Yay.
Thank you very much. Shahir, you asked about clapping at movie theaters and whether people around the world do it. I'm from Germany, and I've never been at a movie screening where people clapped. I didn't even know it was a thing until pretty recently. So yes, just to recap there, a lot of people applauding in the movie.
Oh, yes.
I kind of said that this might be a phenomenon that is based entirely in the U.S., although there will be a follow-up email that disproves that, so we've got two sides of the coin here.
Also, do want to say, before we continue this email, people cheered and clapped and cried and everything the exact same amount week 2 as they did week 1.
Which I think has got to be completely gratifying for the filmmakers to know that their films are kind of working that way. But obviously it doesn't happen with the Germans. Okay, so now some thoughts about the actual movie. I 100% agree that the hashtag girl power scene was pandering, but it worked for me. It made me feel amazing and powerful. And that makes me think, do men feel like that every time when they watch a superhero movie? Do they only exist to pander to male power fantasies after all? I'll continue here. But there was another scene of pandering that didn't work at all. The gay member of Cap's support team is a nice sentiment, but it's not representation. He is a nameless character we haven't seen before and will never see again. And this scene will certainly be cut from international versions. As a queer Marvel fan, I hope I get to see a superhero kiss another boy or a superheroine kiss another girl in my lifetime. We deserve to be heroes and we deserve happy endings.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's address this discussion of pandering, girl power, queer representation.
So, interestingly enough, for the girl power moment, the hashtag girl power moment, I found myself this time. I didn't realize it was happening until halfway through it, if that makes sense. That's how much it worked.
The first time or the second
time?
Right.
That's how much it worked for me now.
Right.
And I tried figuring out, like, I literally had zero problem with it. I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
I didn't have a huge problem with it before, but then this time I was like, oh, it's because it's a pacing issue sort of as well. It's the first time since the characters, everything, we're spoiling everything. We said that before.
Yeah.
That the characters come back and there's the big action scene starts.
Right.
That we have a slow down moment. It goes for like a good 12 minutes of like like very, and this is the first time that sort of stops and there's that superhero pose that men do get all the damn time. And yeah, I feel great when I see that shot in all of the movies. Like, I felt great when I saw this shot. Like, and another gripe I had originally was, oh, well, Captain Marvel doesn't need them to get the glove there.
Yeah.
The way the battle is, though, she kind of does.
Does she?
Because she gets slowed down. She gets knocked off course a bunch. She gets hit with stuff, and it doesn't stop her, but it moves her around, and they sort of keep course correcting her until she can really go forward. Right. And it's again, it's such a huge sequence that I feel like on first watch, like I was more on board with like, yeah, what, like this seems a little bit meh, but like I was actively engaged and I enjoyed it very much. I literally have zero, and I hope that other people sort of get that feeling.
Right.
I mean, it sounds like
Catherine
didn't have that feeling anyway, or she noticed
she enjoyed it,
but it was great.
Yeah, I think it. What it was to me is that I noticed what they were trying to do. So, for example, if you think of in the Avengers, in the first film, in the first Avengers movie, when there's the kind of Avengers assemble moment, that all felt narratively connected to what was happening, which is that okay, now like these characters actually need to be at this point.
It wasn't a trope then.
Yeah, but now it feels like it's a little bit of trope, but I agree with the sentiment is that it should be in the movie. Like it's not a case of that they shouldn't be an all-female Avengers. It shouldn't be
A-Force, baby.
Like female superheroes or anything like that. It's none of that. It's just the way it's used in this film. And the way I would kind of maybe sort of equate it to other discussions that we've had this year is Ocean's 8 versus Widows, which is Ocean's 8 feels like it's wearing the hashtag girls kind of thing on its sleeve, whereas Widows is doing that without wearing that. Like it makes sense as to all those characters being there. That's the way I would kind of describe it as like my feeling about it. I don't think it's a bad moment. I don't think the moment shouldn't exist. But that's the way. And I think there's a similar thing here, which is the gay member of Cap's support group. I have less of an issue with this because it's just dropped in, and I think the thing that I like about it is the idea that it's normal. I agree with the opposite side of the sentiment, which is that the movies haven't done enough work in that respect to kind of create this normalization. And I agree with the cynical part of me, which is to say that for international audiences, this is, like if you're sending this movie to China, this is the scene you'll just cut out because it doesn't affect anything else.
Yeah, it's
for example, Bohemian Rhapsody is playing in China, or I believe in Russia, without any gay or homosexual content, which is just strange to me. But
so there's two. Now we're getting into sort of two sides of it, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Bohemian Rhapsody ever so slightly.
Yeah.
That's literally. I mean, I guess it's two different types of revisionist history.
Yeah.
But like that's trying to scrub a part of a actual human being away in a form of entertainment,
where snapping style way.
Yeah. And in this and in the stuff in general, when they have scenes like this, that are on one level good for representation, but on another level are absolutely not true representation. And I think it's even less. I don't see it, and again, my opinion is almost meaningless in this entire sort of scenario, but the scene itself, I'm with you, Shahir. I think it was very nice to sort of normalize and not make a big deal out of like trying to make it seem like everyday life, because guess what it is?
Yeah.
But the cynical part does jump in, where it's like, well, if they actually cared, they would have put a moment with this sort of feeling into a moment that could not be cut out, or they would have said, nope, you get the whole movie or none of the movie.
Right.
And so far we have not seen that. And that is definitely a blemish in my opinion.
I think it also speaks to the broader context that these movies, as much as we want them to be just great stories, are corporate. These movies are expressions of corporatism in some way, and that expression of corporatism gets pushed through in this respect. And all movies do that. All movies kind of are an expression of a corporate capitalist kind of ideology. And they need to sort of balance that idea out.
And I think that the Marvel films in general do like one of the best balancing acts of that. I think it's why they are so popular and so lucrative. But there are points like this one that I feel like stumbled for a very weird specific reason.
Catherine, we just got one more thought from you before we move on to the next email. A weird thought that I had during the movie: did Thanos' soldiers have families? Because if they do have families, because do those families have to live with the consequences of the snapping part too? I feel like it was really mean to kill them all. I'm soft. Finally, I would honestly be emotionally satisfied if this was the ending of the MCU. I really want to go see a movie with Sam as Captain America and Bucky as sidekick, and a gay superhero, as I said. Matt, you mentioned Jamie so much. You should really bring her on the podcast again. Oh, that's nice.
That is very true.
Love listening to your podcast. Keep up the good work. Just some quick thoughts here. I kind of bounced back. I actually emailed Catherine back with the scene from Clerks where they talk about Death Star contractors, which I think is the exact kind of conversation. It's a fun thought exercise. It points to a sort of a broader issue in terms of like faceless hordes, which is another email we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
Matt, did you have anything?
I mean, I would just say that like it's possible they had families, but at the same time, they felt very, and I can only relate to actual animals that I understand. It felt very brood-ish. It felt very insect-based. Right. And in that way, I think the movie did it smartly so, did a long way to dehumanize Thanos' troops for the most part.
Right.
They must have been born unless they were grown, and in which case, I mean, there's a line from Infinity War where it's like, we have blood to spare, and you're like, oh shit, we know where your priorities are.
Right.
So I would be sad if they got the letters from no one, because they're all snapped. That they're all dead.
The logistics of running Thanos' army, I'm very curious about. A tweet here from Sakuro. Sorry, I'm butchering that. Hi, I'm listening to your in-game episode and would like to share some experiences with you guys. So I'm Taiwanese, and this country is generally crazy for superhero movies. People in Taiwan are usually annoyingly polite and quiet when watching a movie in the theater, but for in-game, people were clapping and cheering throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
Especially for the ending credits when the signatures of the 6 original Avengers came out, which were people clapped for almost a minute long, and people did talk to the screen. So that's the exact opposite reaction, and sort of more in line with the American response. I did not enjoy the signature moment. I
liked it.
I felt it was like the movie was handing me an autograph, which I did not ask for. But
I asked for it.
Whatever.
I sent in all my coupons for my cereal boxes over 11 years, and that's what I got.
There was just the last point Catherine made as well. I would love this to be the end, to be honest with you. And I'm saying that because I'm remembering a quote from Jerry Seinfeld when he was talking about the movie The Hangover. Mm-hmm. He said, if The Hangover was just one movie, it might go down as one of the greatest comedies made in the 21st century. But they made 2 more sequels that diminished the brand entirely.
Oh, 100%. And listen, I'll be the first to say that I love an ending.
And I'm just saying that they're going out on a high right now.
I go back to Cowboy Bebop.
Harry Potter now,
right?
With
I'm just saying, like, an ending is a good thing because you can last. But you know what you can't do with endings? Make more money. So they're going to keep doing it. And do I think the pedigree will hold up for a long time? Yes, I absolutely do. But if they keep making stuff, it's just math. Like it's it's going to start having diminishing return. Like there's no question.
For every Empire Strikes Back, there's got to be a Phantom Menace. Is what you're saying?
I mean, but that movie made money.
Yeah, but it's terrible.
Yeah, but it made money. Like, yeah, I get what you're saying. So yeah, I'm very glad that they were cheering in Taiwan.
Yeah.
Tizkuru also follows up with just saying, thank you for making this episode. It's super long and I'm still listening.
There you go.
But also, I know it's been a while for you, but the Leaving Neverland episode was also very inspiring. I still don't have the courage to watch the documentary, but the questions you raised in that episode made me think a lot. Thank you very much for that. Well, thank you very much for listening. And I never actually thought about the Neverland episode being something that could be helpful for people coming to terms with it without actually watching the thing, because
right, yeah, whether you could listen to our, I don't want to suggest in any way that we are a support group or
no, not at all,
or have anything meaningful to say in terms of that,
but we have, but it's a how do I put it? For someone, especially if Michael Jackson is a large part of your cultural life,
yeah,
having jumping off points like podcasts or articles or things like that to get into a difficult topic rather than just diving straight up into some personal horrors.
Yeah,
that might be good.
It's over to your personal preference. I would recommend watching the doc because it reframes Michael Jackson. And in fact, I had a playlist over the weekend that had Michael Jackson in it, and it had Michael Jackson's song "Pretty Young Things," which we listened to, and we found that we had a lot of difficulty listening to it. And I think for us, it's important to kind of know that context. I don't want to go in blind to the world. That's me.
All right, Gareth. Writing us again. Oh, Gareth, you labyrinthian mastermind, you. He says, hey, guys, I'm halfway through your Endgame podcast, and I'm enjoying it, but I wanted to take a quick intermission to disagree with Shahir.
What?
Especially since it turns out my time travel question was super generic.
Oh,
he says, Shahir said that Black Widow was the obvious choice between her and Hawkeye because she doesn't have a family and has nothing to come back to. But if I recall correctly, even she points out that the only real family she has is the Avengers. And if they win against Thanos, then she has also reunited she has a reunited family to basically come home to, like Hawkeye would in a way. She's practically been acting like the Avengers' overworked mom for the past 5 years anyway. In the end, though, there is a difference, and I would probably still choose her if I had to.
Right.
Because for her family to lose her is like losing a comrade when compared to Hawkeye, who is literally a father and a husband. Plus, the Avengers would survive without her much better than Hawkeye's family would.
Without him.
So agreeing with the decision, but just wanted to highlight that the same familial ties are the same thing.
So Gareth, wait a minute. So you're disagreeing with me, but you're agreeing with me in
No. First of all, and
I'm just making fun, by the way, Gareth.
Yeah.
I love it when people disagree with me.
So I have a whole thing about Black Widow's death now, which kind of ties into this. Ooh. And this was a little bit of my tie-in after seeing it a second time. I never had a problem with Black Widow being the one to sacrifice herself.
Yeah.
What I initially had the problem was the gravity that she was not given when she died. Now, granted, I did have to use the restroom when there was a moment when
so basically you were dishonoring.
I was dishonoring, so that's why I went and saw it again.
It was like her funeral, and you walked out.
But here's the thing: she doesn't get a funeral. They have a moment on the lake where they're all angry, and Thor does the whole "you can just bring her back. We have these magic rocks," and then they're like, "No, you can't." Two things I really like. One, after seeing it again, I do like the fact that they, even though like with Gamora, they sort of sidestep it. I do like the fact that the person in the timeline that dies to get the Soul Stone, no matter what, is gone. That's the sacrifice you make for the Soul Stone. That
Except
is
for Gamora.
But it's a different Gamora.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
But like Gamora's back.
But not the Gamora that Peter Quill had a relationship with. It's a different Gamora.
But theoretically, with that logic, they could go back and pluck a Black Widow that's not that pre-Soulstone Black Widow, right?
Yeah, but it wouldn't be the same Black Widow. Black Widow still died.
Right, but they could go and pluck a.
So this goes back to my second thing, basically, that the reasoning, and especially after sort of you have that moment, and then there's one moment with Hawkeye and Scarlet Witch at Tony Stark's very dramatic funeral.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, why isn't Black Widow getting this?
But they talk about it there, right?
Well, they talk about it, sure, but they don't. It's at Tony Stark's funeral,
right?
It's not at Black Widow and Tony Stark's funeral,
right?
So, but I think I've cracked the reason why they chose to do this.
Mm-hmm.
If they gave Black Widow a really like in-depth funeral scene,
mm-hmm.
it would be far weirder for her to come back. And I don't know what the Black Widow movie is going to be,
yeah.
but even if it's a prequel, if it exists, you have this huge funeral service for a character and then just have another film with them would feel weird in the connectivity. Tony Stark is done.
Right.
I never want him to come back. I don't think he's ever going to come back. Maybe there'll be a recording at some point of a thing or something, but that's about it.
He's also central to the MCU. So this movie was kind of
the end of
the end of Tony Stark.
So from an outside of perspective of watching the film just as the film, knowing that the movie's coming and knowing we will see more adventures of Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow, I get why they didn't do that.
Right.
As far as choosing her, I honestly think her and Hawkeye are evenly matched to sacrifice themselves. As far as that, I don't think there's
my issue is that it's not that sort of question of like.
Who has less to lose?
No, it's not the issue of like she should die because she doesn't deserve it or anything like that. It's not like sort of a question. It's just my issue is in the parameters that the film sets up, which is that it starts with Hawkeye losing his family, and this is an opportunity to get that family. That's what the parameters of this film are. So when they're sort of having this debate, I'm just kind of going, well, it seems obvious to me. Okay, do your thing if you need to. But here's an
that's coming from you're being familially biased.
Why am I being familially biased?
Well, I mean, the choice.
I'm saying the parameters of what this film, Avengers Endgame, is saying to us is that is the choice, right? Like the choice is this character who we've seen go through this amazing trauma. Has the opportunity to get his family back versus this character who has spoken much, in the film about like not really having much to do now and not really having much of a family that she wants to get back. If that's our choices, it seems obvious to me in the parameters of this film.
But the parameters of the film are also that all these characters care about each other greatly. Like I think they handled it well. I don't think
But here's what I'm saying: if Natasha had died. If Clint had died and Natasha had lived, does that make sense in the parameters of the film that they've kind of set up?
Based on their characters, absolutely. That fight could have gone. Yeah, listen, I'll go through it. Okay. That's why I think the way that they set up that thing, they could have told a compelling story one way or the other. For instance, if Clint sacrificed himself,
at the end of the film,
I'm telling you what I'm thinking.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
If Clint had sacrificed himself and had been the one to get the Soul Stone and Nat came back, that opens up a whole nother line of turmoil and grief for not only all of the characters, but ScarJo in particular, because now not only did she lose a comrade and friend, but now she has to deal with the fact that she feels responsible for literally making it so people that she is very close with, a family that's probably the closest thing outside of the Avengers that you'd ever, now doesn't have a father.
Right.
And like that is also an interesting and compelling story. It's a different story. And look, if you want to do the cold, calculated like math version of this very emotional situation that is out of the entire spectrum of reality, yes, you and Gareth are correct. It is the proper mathematical move for Scarlett Johansson to die. But I would have been happy either way with either of them. I think there's interesting stories that could be told.
The other thing about this whole sequence that kind of like it bugged me in retrospect is like, why did those two human characters go to the other planet?
Yeah, I mean, sure.
Like, why not send the Hulk to that scenario or something like that?
Because then he couldn't die.
Or, they didn't know that, though. I'm just saying, like, you're going interplanetary. Why send your two human characters there versus your, like, superhuman
So they could make the joke about Budapest. Moving on!
Well, no, I have one more thing about this because there was an interesting article in Gizmodo or IO9 about the title was The Avengers Endgame, Women Deserve More. And there's an interesting story about Black Widow's character deserving more in the entire narrative because there's been some criticism about, like, the way she's being treated, first off as a sex object, secondly as a barren woman, which I think think has been described as well. In an interview with the New York Times, screenwriters Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely made it clear that Natasha really wanted to die because she wanted to see all of her Avengers boys happy. Her journey, in our minds, this is quoting McFeely, the writer, had come to an end if she could get the Avengers back. It was melodramatic to have him, Hawkeye, die and not get his family back, and it's only right and proper that she's done, Marcus added when the New York Times broached the subject of the Vormir death race. And now I'm paraphrasing from the article. These responses only highlight the very massive disservice this film does to its women's characters. Hawkeye gets to live because he has a family. Natasha, the sterile woman who comes from a bad home, gets to die because her greatest wish is that her found family of hero boys will be happy. She is there to prop him and the other men up. Her character arc amounts to her arc to the arc her body makes as it plummets to the ground. I think that's an interesting thing. It points to that broader conversation that these films speak to our collective desire as an audience for representation, not just for narrative. Because I think narratively, I would pick her as a representative task, just like seeing gay characters on screen. I would want her arc to be more representative, and not be biased against women. So I think that's an interesting,
I think point. that I read that the interview. They sound like such fucking yokels.
Taken out of context. Don't want to. Put words in
yeah. But the interesting thing is, I feel like that is a quote just that like. That's two writers trying really hard to weirdly enough, going back to like knowing that there's a Black Widow movie coming, like they're trying to just get away from the topic too much because they don't want to focus on the fact that she's dead because she's gonna be back. Like, and that's not correct. I mean, I 100% agree with everything you said, Shahir. As far as what is important for representation versus what is important elsewhere. But I just think it's interesting. I think it's funny that the writers and actors and things now have to do this weird little dance where they like kind of spew things that maybe they either don't truly believe or they're not comfortable with saying to toe the company line.
And just to be clear, we are part of the problem. We are like this sort of ongoing conversation is great because like pop culture conversations are important and fun to have, but we're getting into the situation now where it's not a movie making exercise, it's a marketing exercise, and it's a press exercise. And I think that's just kind of where we are in the world, and that's what it is. But that's kind of an odd place.
I'd say we're part of the solution. Moving on.
Steven, do you want to read this one?
You read this one.
Okay, great podcast. Fun fact, I've actually worked on a time travel movie. Fun fact, Stephen, I've seen that time travel movie, Event 16. I actually worked on a story about that time travel movie. In another timeline, it was very successful. In the real world, it was not. We looked at the very different rules to time travel really hard, and the endgame basically jumps across parts from several different sets of rules to whatever works for the story. I can't fault them for that. Story should be the one thing to rule them all, but it's not a good time travel story. Anyway, how does Scarlet come back? How Scarlet could come back using the bonkers... Scarlet Witch comes back using the bonkers time rules of Endgame.
Maybe he's talking about Scarlett Johansson there?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. Either way, I'm just going to... He's pointing out some some time travel things. Captain America jumps back to just before Scarlet and Hawk get the stone. I think he's talking about Black Widow. This is how they could have resolved it. Gives the Soul Stone he has to Hawkeye, who takes it back to use it to get used in the snap. Scarlet lives, Black Widow lives and leaves without Cap. This is basically just an alternate.
He's giving alternate versions of things characters could have done to make it work.
Yeah. The time travel thing. I'm gonna just again go back to the Looper quote. Don't try to think about it too hard because you'll work yourself in circles. There is a thing that I haven't quite put together in my head, and I'm sure there's a solution for it. It doesn't make it any more satisfying, but I don't understand how Cap goes into and creates a new timeline for himself by going back into the past and living. How does he come back to this timeline? I guess there's probably some narrative solution for that.
From what I understand, it's if he put back all of the stones in the exact right way, right, there wouldn't be another timeline, and he would just be back in that timeline. The stones are the things that sort of, this is the weird thing. It's not an individual. Like an individual doing it doesn't have enough pull cosmically to make a full other timeline sort of on its own. It's if the stones are in these active sort of spots are not in the right places where time has gone, that's when it sort of splits.
So how does Captain America go to Volmir or whatever? Or how
Volmir?
Yeah.
and put the stone back? I have no idea. They didn't show it.
Yeah.
I will say that I will take the thematic ending that I think Captain America deserves over nitpicking. I do think still, and I have, and it's boring, sort of gone into the like how and the why and the figuring out. And like there's definitely ways it could be done. The other thing I will say about Steven's email is I try really hard to not like be like, well, why didn't the characters do this?
Yeah.
Because oftentimes I was just watching Game of Thrones, no spoilers. But Game of Thrones characters lately have been making real stupid decisions. But in hectic situations. And my friends always are like, well, that's so stupid. Why didn't they just do A, B, and C? And I've been like, I've been in a lot of stressful situations where I act stupid.
Right.
Like, you don't always make the optimum play. They don't have the benefit of being behind it, watching it happen, being like, I would have done it like this. So I try to get away from that line of thinking. I'm not saying Steven's doing that here, but I've now just sort of stopped.
Yeah. That's the thing. I'm with you on that, which is I like the Captain America ending as it stands. I think it's emotionally cathartic, even if it's logically somewhat nonsensical, but nonsensical because I don't want to even think about it. To be honest with you, I don't care enough to really pull that thread apart. There are movies that I would do that, and this is not one of them.
Endgame tweet, and we got the tweets from our friend Jonathan Blade, aka Janky Old Broke Hobo Spider-Man. He says, I was most struck by Shahir talking about representation in Western media and the possibility of his son never getting to see a face like his own in the pop culture landscape that he will consume. I understand and sympathize with that emotional perspective very much. My POV has always been that there are glossy, heroic tales of representation of Indian, Chinese, and Japanese folks in their respective film industries, but if the culture of representation isn't the one you most identify with, then how much would you actually feel represented?
Well, thank you, Blade. The Blade. I'm gonna just go back to Catherine's email here because I think what I appreciate that he cottoned on to that. I don't want to make that my sentiment there be angsty or the be all and end all about this film. I think I also think not every film can be everything to everyone.
Sure. It's just this one is so large, it's easy to look at that from a cultural perspective.
And I think I was just looking at that, and even I was looking at that hashtag woman moment and saying, there's never going to be one of me in those moments. And I don't foresee a world where I am ever in that moment. And I think I was asking the same question Catherine was asking earlier from Germany, which was like, what must it feel like to feel like you're in that moment? Like how powerful must it be to have that moment, feel like it's talking directly to you. And again, not every movie can be everything to everyone, so I don't want to make it a big deal. And as the Blade rightly points out, there are so many different places that this exists. There are so many places where representation can happen. So it's not a case of the movie having to speak directly to me.
Right.
I guess the only counterpoint there, and I think Catherine's counterpoint to this as well, is that what must it feel like when a movie does speak directly to you? And I certainly, my stories like that might be. There's no story that specifically speaks to me, because I'm, Fijian, Indian, New Zealand, American. That's just such a weird anomaly that, but I've seen people that look like me on screen before, and I'm always, and it's fascinating because I have like that sort of like almost Lacanian rejection of them because they're like, I can't be on screen because I don't, we're not meant to be on screen kind of thing. You seriously have that thing because you don't see yourself on screen very often. So you're like, when you do, you're like, what's going on here? And then other times where it's like, it's cool to see someone that kind of looks like me. And then you're like, do I look like that? Maybe I do look like that. And it's a weird balancing act. It's a weird game. It's an I think there's no right or wrong answer. It's an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Wanted to go to the Blade's last question, which was very broadly asked, and we were mentioning that. And we're going to try and do it very quickly. What is your favorite MCU scene or scenes up until this point?
Do you have one?
I have 3.
You have to do a favorite.
No, I'm doing 3.
That's not a favorite.
What are your favorite MCU scenes?
What are your favorite scenes? Okay, I apologize. I misread Jonathan's ask.
I've got 3 very quickly. Iron Man taking flight in the first movie. Hulk taking flight in Ang Lee's Hulk.
That's not in the MCU.
Why not?
Because it's not.
Wait.
Ang Lee's Hulk is not in the MCU.
Is
the
it?
other one, the Edward Norton one, is.
Is it? But that is a sequel to that one, right? The Incredible Hulk also takes.
Sure, but it's just not.
What? Why is it not?
Because they literally say it's not.
Who says it not?
The Kevin Feige.
Can you post that quote, please, and then I'll
Sure.
retract it when you post
Sure.
that quote. The second is Vulture reveals whose daddy is. The third.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Those are my 3 moments.
My favorite is easily, and I know that I have to go away.
Right.
And
Cat
just
Stevens.
yeah, just by the musical cue, you know that I'm talking about Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Yondu's funeral. That is easily my favorite MCU
I thought
moment.
Cat Stevens was in the first movie.
No.
Was
Oh,
it?
maybe there's a Cat Stevens song, but that song is during Yondu's funeral in Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Was it? Okay.
Spoiler for Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Yeah. That's your moment. Any others? Any other?
I mean, that's the one I go back to time and time again.
Well, when you just close your eyes now and think about all of them,
Yeah.
like, are there any just moments that jump in your head?
Right now, just because it's so fresh, Cap with Thor's hammer.
That's great. It's a great moment.
And particularly the splash scene of him just standing against the entire army is dope.
Yeah.
A lot shorter the second time I watched it. Like, I burned into my brain the first time, and I was like, I experienced time very differently during that.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I have fun, like, comic moments. I think the Mandarin reveal in Iron Man 3 is fucking great.
Yeah.
I think little things, even in Infinity War, when Okoye talks to T'Challa about, like, you said when you thought we'd bring the outside world to Wakanda, I didn't think you meant this. What'd you think of me? Like, maybe a Starbucks.
Yeah.
Like, I think things like that. The metaphysical Ham on Rye line from Doctor Strange. Like, there's a lot of fun throwaways. But no, Yondu's funeral, 100%.
Okay. So that's it. We're never talking about Avengers Endgame ever again.
Until next week,
No,
when
no.
we bring you more emails of Avengers and no,
Never again.
No,
Never again.
I mean, I'm
That's
going
it.
to. I'm going to talk about
Done.
a bunch.
No more.
No, maybe.
No more.
We'll see.
Ever.
Anyway, if you like these kind of little, I mean, this went on a little bit longer than we thought, but that's fun. If you like these sort of email-centric episodes, whenever we have larger movies, let us know if you like these, and we'll try to do more of them. And otherwise, we're just going to put them in the regular email, in the regular episodes. Well, with that, I guess we say goodbye.
We've done the end game.
Yeah.
Like, this is it. That's it.
We've done it. Well, it's called the end game.
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah.
That we are in the. No, we're not in the end game. We're past it now.
End game.
What?
I can't take it anymore.
Nts,
End game.
nts, nts, nts,
It's you
nts.
and me, baby. End game.
End game.
Thanos
He
is
took back
really
the
gone.
stones.
Oh, shit.
Oh, we're not doing it. No!